What's up guys, my name is Ace, and now that we've had a full day to play with the Haunting event in both Cold War as well as Warzone, I've been noticing a lot of the reception hasn't been great regarding this particular mini-event. And I've got to say that I actually agree with a lot of the complaints and criticisms surrounding this event. Last year's Haunting event was great. I still think it is one of the best events that we've had since Warzone launched. And on paper, at least, when they were describing this year's Haunting event, things also looked really good. I was really excited for it. My hype level was quite high going into it. And perhaps that's the problem. Perhaps I set the bar a little bit too high, and I set my hype a little bit too high. And therefore, maybe I just set myself up for disappointment by doing that. But in today's video, I just wanted to share my feedback and criticism of this event, because it's just not quite as good as I feel it could be. Now, just to clarify, anytime I make a video that is critical of something in Call of Duty, people will call me a crybaby or something. This isn't a big deal to me. It's not the end of the world. But I am a Call of Duty content creator, and when something goes wrong, I feel like it's important to talk about it, so then potentially lessons can be learned for the future. And let's start it off with the Warzone side of things. I'm mainly just going to be focusing on the Ghosts of Verdansk playlist. This is the one that replaced essentially Zombie Royale from last year, which was a huge hit last year, where you would end up turning into a zombie after you died, and then you had an opportunity to respawn as a zombie, and you could kill other players and collect the souls or whatever they were, like syringes or something last year. And with this year's Haunting event, it seemed like, at least on paper, they were taking that idea to the next level by, instead of having zombies, they had ghosts, so that's more of just a cosmetic change, or largely cosmetic change. There are some slightly different characteristics here or there. But on top of this, they added a fear meter and safe zones that you could go to, so it just seemed like they were adding some more depth and complexity to the Zombie Royale mode, while keeping all of the things that made that mode special. So the fact that you could respawn as a zombie, or in this case a ghost. We've got the jump scare crates that are around the map, so you never know when you open a crate if you're going to get a jump scare. That's really neat. Also, Verdansk at night, that's a big deal for a Halloween event. It's really nice to play in a totally different feeling environment, even though it is still the same map. However, after just playing a couple games of this, I've noticed some pretty serious and frustrating issues. And the number one big issue that I'm sure a lot of you guys have experienced by now is if you let that fear meter get too high, you start to have hallucinations and things will pop up on your screen. And on paper, this sounded like a neat idea until you see what those animations actually are. In the background, you'll see a couple examples here that severely block your view of what's going on in the center of your screen. And in some cases, it literally blocks your entire screen for a couple seconds, which is a really long time, especially if you're engaged in a gunfight. And to me, this is just completely overboard and overkill. I get that you want to have sort of like a spooky environment, maybe some jump scares or some creepy things going on, and that's great. I just don't feel it should so severely impact our gameplay. And I do realize this isn't supposed to be a super serious, highly competitive mode, but it is still a battle royale game with a single life, even though you do get a chance to respawn, I guess. But inherently, it is a last man or last squad standing sort of a mode that we're investing 15 to 25 minutes of our time in, and losing one single gunfight can easily throw all of that investment in that game out the window. And it's just really annoying when, out of the blue, you get this animation that blocks the center of your screen, so you can't see what you're shooting at, you can't see what's going on at all, and that could very well just essentially cancel out the last 15 to 20 minutes you just put into the game, through no real fault of your own. Sure, you can go into those safe zones and reduce your fear meter and everything, and I get that. I just don't feel your gameplay should be punished so harshly for having a maxed out fear meter. I'd be fine if these animations were very carefully designed so they didn't directly block the center of your screen, or make it so there's a lot less opacity to it, so you can actually see through those animations at least a little bit, so you can kind of tell what you're shooting at still, rather than something that 100% blocks what you can see. I think it would have been cool if the fear meter, once that was maxed out, maybe it starts limiting your peripheral vision a little bit. Maybe you start to get tunnel vision, so it reduces your peripherals, but you can still see what is directly in the center of your screen. This sounds perfect to me. It would really build that tension. It would be terrifying to have your field of view limited a bunch and you can basically just see through the center of your screen. But in doing so, that would still ensure that if you're shooting at someone, you can still track your target, you can shoot your target, and you can have a gunfight. In my mind, that would have just been a much better way to handle this, and it would have led to a lot less frustration with it. You would still be at a disadvantage by letting your fear meter max out, but you would at least still have a chance in gunfights. So that's the main piece of criticism I have for this mode. I feel like that should have been more carefully implemented, at least in my opinion. But on top of this, I noticed the ghosts don't make nearly as much sound as the zombies did last year, and that also leads to some frustration. There were a couple times in my really limited experience where just out of nowhere, it's like a ghost just appeared on me, and there was no audio indication whatsoever that that ghost was basically touching me. And gameplay-wise, at least, I feel like the audio should be a little bit better, especially since I was playing on PlayStation at the time just because it's faster and easier to record from. And therefore, my field of view is already really limited, so you kind of rely on audio when your field of view is so limited. So that's another big frustration I have with that mode. But aside from that, everything else is pretty cool when it comes to it. I still like the general premise and idea behind the mode. It's just those little things that kind of ruin the experience for me and make me not really want to play this anymore for the rest of the event. Additionally, one other thing I wanted to mention with Warzone, if I'm not mistaken, for last year's Haunting event, I believe even the regular Battle Royale modes during this event were played at night. They were on the nighttime version of Verdansk, whereas this time around, it's still just the regular old Verdansk. It's still daytime. And I think it would have been nice to have that nice change of pace, but in the regular Battle Royale modes, to be able to play at night just for this short period of time. This one's not a major issue, I just feel like that's something that would have been cool and generally would have been applauded by the community. So that's it for the Warzone side of things. Now let's move on to Cold War. When it comes to Cold War, we got the Infected game mode, which I was really excited for until I hopped in and I immediately was reminded that Treyarch just doesn't do the best Infected mode. The major thing that's missing from Infected in Cold War is the lack of a tactical insertion. This is sort of a staple of Infected, and it's a very important part of the gameplay of Infected. It makes it much more intense as a survivor, so there's a lot more crazy action going on, and it makes it a lot better as an Infected player as well. I think it just improves the game for everyone when there's a tactical insertion. Now, I realize Cold War doesn't have a tactical insertion in it, but it would have been nice to see them add that. I don't know how difficult it would have been, but I remember back to the COD World War II version of Infected. When they added that, if I remember correctly at least, there was no tactical insertion in the game. Or I guess they had one where you could parachute from the sky. I think they added that later in the game. But for Infected, they created their own form of a tactical insertion where you drop your skull on the ground as an Infected player. It would have been awesome to see Treyarch do something similar with this, but unfortunately, they just didn't. Now, this might just be a result of them creating this so late in the life cycle for the game that it just wouldn't be worth their time and their investment. I just feel like it would have improved the game mode so much more if they had a tactical insertion. As for the other limited time mode that they added, Scream Deathmatch. This is basically, it's kind of like Michael Myers hide and seek sort of a mode, where two players are selected as the killers, or Ghostface, and then everybody else just has to try to survive. And they don't get any weapons, they can't fight back, all they can do is run away and also try and hide from them. And the idea behind this mode seems solid, it seems great, but the execution I just don't like at all. What I have found playing this mode so far is, first up, the killers will get a combat axe that will automatically replenish itself. So consistently throughout a round, that killer is just going to keep getting more and more combat axes. And even though it's a two-hit kill, it doesn't take much to be able to kill somebody that's trying to run away from you. You can either knife them or hit them with a combat axe, either one works. And another thing I've found is the killers appear to have either exactly the same movement speed or maybe even a very slightly faster movement speed than the people that are trying to hide. And the combination of both of those things is what I have a problem with. I think if the killers are going to be getting this replenishing combat axe, they should have a very slightly slower movement speed than the survivors. Either that or keep the movement speed of the killer, but limit them to a knife or like a one-time use combat axe that they actively have to go and pick up every time they throw it. And if they throw it off the map or something, too bad, it's lost, now they're just stuck with a knife. I think this would make the game mode much more enjoyable because I didn't find it enjoyable as a survivor at all, and I didn't even find it enjoyable as a killer. The kills didn't really feel satisfying, they were too easy to get, and then as a survivor, I just felt completely helpless most of the time. Obviously, it did depend a little bit on the map, but still, I just had this feeling of, like, I can't run away from them, I can't hide from them, I might as well just accept my death. And with that, that pretty much wraps it up for today's video with my feedback and criticism for this event. I was very excited to get into this, but unfortunately, every mode I've played so far related to this event just hasn't been fun for me. Now, I will say I haven't touched any of the zombie side of things, so maybe the zombie side is great, but I'm just not really into zombies personally, so I don't really have any intention of hopping into that. But I was just really hoping I would enjoy at least one of these game modes that they added, especially Infected. but I just don't, and I don't see myself playing these modes at all throughout the rest of the event. Now, of course, these are just my opinions. I'd like to hear in the comment section below, what do you guys think of the haunting event so far in Cold War and or Warzone? Do you agree with me? Do you think these modes could have been handled much better with just a few minor tweaks? Or do you like them just fine as is? Just let me know down below. If you enjoyed the video, a like rating is always appreciated. And don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.